and welcome to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. We are your hosts, Richard and Karen Inslee.
The Healthy Half Hour podcast is your resource for all things healthy, and we will be discussing how to make nutrition, fitness and lifestyle choices work for you.
We will be sharing our own personal insights along with research gathered from working in the health and fitness industry for the past 10 years.
Our show is brought to you by the 7 Day Shred, which can be found at 7dayshred.com, and please feel free to visit our podcast website, which can be found at healthyhalfhourpodcast.com.
And now on to today's show.
Hi everybody, we're back again, and
It's been a while.
yeah, normally we share a few tidbits about obviously what we've been up to, and really not been up to a lot. The weather's started to go cold. It's actually snowing right now as I look out the window, and I think the only thing that we've really done is I think we mentioned about winterizing our bees, and you've just done the final. You've put some wrap around the hives, haven't you?
Wrapped them all up last week and finished the garden up and got all the fence down and finally got the carrots in, and we were going to shoot a podcast out last weekend, but both ended up with kind of
cold
and just bunged up a little bit, and it just wouldn't have come off very well.
Coughing
we appreciate that people on social media keep pestering us. When are you going to do another podcast? And yes, thank you. We're on it. So we've got a few lined up now. So we're hopefully going to get back on track and get going between now and Christmas. And like you being out of the country and everything else, it's just been a topsy-turvy fall so far. But
yeah, it's just been a bad 4 weeks, and now that we're kind of going to become recluses and hibernate,
yeah, pretty
now
much.
the cold weather's set in, we're going to have loads of time to do podcasts.
All minus temperatures from here till April. Yay.
Yay! So we're going to be talking about orthorexia today. So we like using big words, eh?
Oh, yes. We mentioned this one a couple of podcasts ago, but we had your brother and sister-in-law here for a while they were visiting. So we used their time while they were here to do a podcast. So, yeah, we kind of skipped one back again. So, yeah, we did actually mention orthorexia a couple of podcasts ago. And, yeah, we're just going to go over what it is, and hopefully you don't have it, or we're going to talk about that too, about maybe overdiagnosis a little bit.
And like you just said, hopefully you don't, those listening don't have it, but this is kind of maybe a podcast to make you actually think. And some people probably do have orthorexia and are not aware of it. And it's not a podcast to scare you, but it's just to kind of...
Oh, I was going to go with the scary thing.
Oh,
it's just been...
Great awareness.
It's just been Halloween, so ooh, scary.
Yeah, but great awareness and get you to think about, what because our goal is to empower people to make...
Empower, scare, it's very similar.
Empower you to take, control of your own health and to make healthy choices, but orthorexia, as we're going to explain, is kind of maybe taking it a little bit too far. So
yes, it's not actually recorded. The term orthorexia is not actually recorded in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual for the American Psychiatric Association. You're probably thinking, what is that? Well, they've actually got a manual. Like psychiatrists have a manual that they can use, and they can look at you and assess if you have a psychiatric problem. There's about 155 problems listed in that manual in varying different forms, and they actually break down into around 600 different things. So, a lot of this is, it's people's perspective on how other people think. And again, there seems to be some argument about there's a kind of an epidemic of overdiagnosing and kind of fad diagnosis that normality is actually becoming an endangered species, but that's kind of going off track a little bit with orthorexia. But yes, it's not actually in that manual, so it's not actually recognised per se. The term came from a doctor called Stephen Bratman in the late 90s, around 1997, And he was suggesting that people's dietary restrictions intended to promote health were actually, paradoxically, leading to unhealthy consequences such as social isolation, anxiety, loss of ability to eat in natural and intuitive manner. And again, we spoke about intuitive eating on that podcast a couple of weeks ago, which kind of steered the ship this way.
And orthorexia is actually an eating disorder, but like if you actually say to people, oh, you reference the term eating disorder, people automatically just assume that it's anorexia or bulimia. But there's like the eating disorders are so broad, but when it comes to eating disorders here in Canada, I just have like a few statistics that I wanted to share, and it's actually quite like alarming in some respects because there's actually an estimated 1 million Canadians that would actually meet the diagnostic criteria for actually having an eating disorder. And that doesn't just include the typical anorexia or bulimia that you would associate with an eating disorder. And eating disorders actually, and these are Canadian statistics. So I'm assuming if I was to do even more research, like globally, like the statistics in different parts of the world would like vary. But I think, from a global perspective, like some of the Western countries are probably very on line with us. And eating disorders have the highest actually death rate of any mental illness. And in Canada, 1 in 10 people with an eating disorder actually die from it. And suicide is a major cause of death from individuals who've been diagnosed with an eating disorder. Obviously, it's a serious form of mental illness, and Canadian doctors actually, those even who are still in training, actually feel unprepared to treat patients with eating disorders. And again, that goes back to doctors not actually being trained in nutrition. There's a lot of doctors nowadays that are actually taking control of their own education, realizing that nutrition is very beneficial to health and that maybe medicine is not like the answer for everything. And there's more and more medical practitioners getting on board with it. But, and eating disorders, a lot of the time, are actually not a choice, can affect all genders, ages, races, ethnic identities, sexual orientations, like socioeconomic backgrounds. But a lot of eating disorders actually go undiagnosed because, especially when it comes to orthorexia, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, like we're creating awareness and maybe like you actually have it, but you don't realize that you do. And more than 1 in 5 Canadian teenagers are on a diet at any one time, and that actually puts them at a higher risk for developing eating disorders. And provincially here, patients who have anorexia alone and are on long-term disability, the cost per year is nearly $102 million. That's like scary. And especially if you think about the fact that any of those not diagnosed with an eating disorder, but they are actually drawing off like, or increasing the medical costs, I guess, and increasing the resources that they draw off the system. And I'd say eating disorders, especially orthorexia, as you mentioned, it can create like a lot of anxiety in people. And we've mentioned previously on podcasts that anxiety is the precursor to depression. And so this is like a big topic, but we kind of want to just, give you like an overview and encourage you to even go and do your own research as well after you've listened.
I thought you wouldn't want to frighten the crap out of people. So talking of the research, again, depending on which website you go, as is usual on the internet, there's lots of, we found quite a few different lists of warning signs and symptoms of orthorexia. So we'll go over a couple of them just to have a quick fish through. Some of them, again, my personal view is, they're kind of reaching a little bit on some of this stuff. But again, everybody's different and some people take things differently. And again, in my mind, maybe they are or maybe they aren't reaching, I guess.
And the list that you found, I mean, it's
better than yours.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, mine's better. Like we said, like when we started our podcast, feels like many moons ago now. These are our opinions and what we've researched. And as we say, go and do your own research. But it's like, don't research Dr. Google when you're not feeling well. We have some credible resources that we shared with you and places to go. So
this one I got off MickeyMouse.com. So
did you? Okay, cool. That's definitely credible then. So
again, just like a quick rundown of this list: compulsive checking of ingredients and nutritional labels. An increase in concern about the health of ingredients, so kind of what the ingredient is. Cutting out increasing numbers of food groups like all sugar, all carbs, all dairy, all meat, all animal products. So, I mean, if you read that, all vegetarians and vegans have got orthorexia. So that one kind of didn't make really sense to me.
And everybody following a keto diet.
Yeah, and everybody's doing...
following a paleo or Atkins or...
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. An inability to eat anything but a narrow group of foods that are deemed healthy or pure. Unusual interest in the health of what others are eating. Spending hours a day thinking about what food might be served at upcoming events. Showing high levels of distress when safe or healthy foods aren't available. Obsessive following of healthy lifestyle blogs and food blogs on social media. Body image concerns may or may not be present. So again, that list, I said to us, Karen, just prior to us recording, that there's probably 3 out of those, 4 maybe, that, I would tie into possible orthorexia issues. And again, those that are kind of causing undue stress or anxiety. Some of the other ones, to me, it's just choice. And as long as you're not going nuts about it, which most people don't, I don't know, it just seems a little bit vague. But the list you came up with was a little different.
Yeah, orthorexia, obviously it is an eating disorder. So you've got those that like chronically diet, those who micromanage their food or their macro intake. And whether it's, you do see it in the keto community more than anything, but it's still prevalent in the vegetarian or the paleo or the Atkins communities, different formulas, is that micromanaging your macro intake. And when I've looked at some of the comments in some of the keto groups, it's do you ever feel that when people are explaining their macro intake, that it's more complicated than listening to a university statistics professor, because it's micromanaging and trying to narrow down and I don't know, to the 8th degree. And a lot of people, when they're micromanaging their nutrition intake, they beat themselves up if they go 1 gram over their carb allowance. They feel they feel shamed. They feel that it's a sign of weakness. And there's a lot of self-judgment and a lot of guilt after eating certain foods. And you shouldn't be there. And orthorexia is when you do actually have that, you've judged yourself, you've felt guilty, and you've actually got a fear of food, and your actions become obsessive, whether it's obsession over, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, weighing yourself, and people become disconnected from society. They will avoid going to places. We mentioned on, I don't know whether it was the last podcast or not, or whether I was just referring to the post on Facebook I did, people saying, does this restaurant have a keto menu? And it was well, every restaurant almost has a keto menu. It's but people are avoiding going to places. They're staying at home because they want to avoid going to certain places. And orthorexia, it is that unhealthy obsession. But when you said it on that list of yours about checking food labels, okay, yeah, we've said before, if you're checking a food label, you're doing it wrong, because a cauliflower doesn't have a food label. If any Whole Foods is not going to have a food label, it's going to have a barcode so the checkout girl can scan it. But checking food labels.
How do you print a barcode on a cauliflower?
It's in a plastic. It's wrapped in shrink wrap.
Can you have plastic on touching your food?
Wow.
I'm orthorexic.
Yeah. Checking food labels, your list says that obsessively.
It's not my list. It's somebody else's list.
The list that you read out.
Okay.
Checking food labels. If you're checking food labels, that's good, because you're conscious of not buying something that has got, I know, like artificial sweeteners and poor quality oils. That's sensible.
Something you may be like allergic to, or a family member or something like that. So, like I say, with this list, the one that I was reading out, like I say, there's a lot of grey areas in there, and sometimes people, again, maybe if I've got a little bit of anxiety, or you may just read that and, oh my God, that's me, and then it just buries you deeper in the hole that you're in already. So sometimes with these things, again, you need to have a look at how you think about it, and maybe, like I say, you may be obsessing a little bit too much. And we were saying in that previous podcast about the intuitive eating, and really that's what it all kind of comes back round to again. Yes, there may be things you're chopping back out your diet a little bit because, again, from a health benefit, or it may be working for you currently for a weight loss benefit, but again, like Karen says, don't obsess about it, and kind of just take stuff in your stride and eat normally if you want to.
I know orthorexia often develops as initially because it develops as because you're attempting to get healthy. So you're making some new food choices, whether it's paleo, Atkins, keto, vegetarianism. Basically, you're making these changes because you're attempting to get yourself healthy. But orthorexia can develop as that over obsession on and fixation on what would be righteous eating, I guess. And it's just going and taking it that step too far.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that, I mean, if you are that, I mean, you'll know whether that's you. And some people, again, do over obsess on things. And most people understand that they are that person, or they do overly obsess on stuff. So just, again, take that 10,000 foot view and have a look. And are you obsessing a little bit too much about it? You know what I mean? Should you kind of take a step back? Do you need to talk to somebody about it? Because, again, if you have looked at these lists and anxiety is creeping in with these things, then there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody, talking to a therapist about it. You may already have a therapist you're seeing. And I mean, we're not dismissing this as that, don't worry about it. Seriously, if you do, or you think you have an issue, certainly talk to somebody about it. If you do have an issue, again, they can help you. If not, I mean, they just may put your mind at rest that what you're doing is okay. So yeah, certainly don't poo-poo the whole thing.
And we've said this like multiple times, the physiological response to the body when it comes to stressing actually over the food that you're eating, whether you ate 1 gram over your carb allowance, or you went out and had a cupcake and it isn't in your normal routine. The physiological stress response on the body is often worse from a health perspective than the actual food that you're eating. And so orthorexia can actually be creating poor physiological health on your body because you are fixating too much and getting cases of anxiety and even like depressive incidences where you're fixating too much on what you're actually doing. And I brought up an article that's actually on the dailymail.co.uk, and it was about
this English papers. You can't trust them.
And it was actually a 17-year-old girl that actually got admitted to hospital for a month, and she actually had orthorexia. And I just wanted to read just a couple of the comments that she made, and said that she was surrounded. She wanted actually to get healthier, and she became obsessed with actually clean eating. And she eliminated everything that she thought wasn't healthy, and she was always counting calories. She'd never go to parties. She'd never eat anything unhealthy. And if she didn't go for a run once a day, she'd actually feel terrible and worthless. And it's just so sad that like this 17-year-old girl felt so worthless by her habits, or the lack of something that she did. And she actually said in the article that it took away the meaning of being happy, fit and healthy. She wasn't happy anymore. She was always sad, but she actually didn't think that there was anything wrong with her. And she'd seen people with eating disorders and friends who had suffered from anorexia. And she says like, oh, I wasn't like that. I was different. She said that she loved food, but she actually became fixated on what kind of food that she ate. And she says why other people obsessed with being skinny, she actually wanted to be strong and healthy. But this is like, say, going back to social media, she actually drew her motivation from social media, and she wanted to recreate her life, so that she looks like she had the perfect Instagram page, and that she was perfect in every way, and that she wanted to be one of those happy Instagram models. Because this 17-year-old girl, she actually was a model, and she actually looked at other Instagram models, and obviously we all know that everybody's social media life looks perfect and happy, and she is actually saying that those happy Instagram models, and she wanted to be just like them. And we all know that obviously social media can make things look way better than what they actually are. But one of the other
everybody that thinks I used to go to school with thinks I'm a NASA astronaut.
And one of the things that when she was actually, the reason she was actually admitted to hospital was, I think her weight dropped down to 46 kilos, which obviously is drastically low. But her orthorexia and like her being fixated and controlling what she ate, she actually developed like really high blood pressure. And this article was in the Daily Mail. I'm not quite sure what.
Well, we'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, I can put a link to it and just have a read on it. So yeah, it was just interesting to see. So like I say,
just food for thought.
Oh,
well, don't obsess about that food.
Don't obsess about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully we've covered this again, just making you think a little bit about it. And like I say, we're hopefully going to be good people and throw some more content out there. But as we've said before, if we've got nothing to say, I'm not going to say just anything. But we'll be.
I thought you just waffled on about.
Oh, bitter. Well, we'll waffle on next time then. See you then.
That's all we have time for right now, but we do hope that you join us for our next show. And if you want to contribute to an upcoming show by suggesting a topic that you would like us to discuss in more detail, then hop over to our website, healthyhalfhourpodcast.com, subscribe to our podcast and submit your suggestions. The Healthy Half Hour Podcast was brought to you by the 7 Day Shred, and don't forget to share our details with your friends and review our show. Until next time, thanks for listening.